Okay. As now Hamza Asjad, I don't know what emergency you had. You could have just waited for 2 or 3 minutes. Don't please bombard the messages tab with question screen is not shared. I'm not seeing you, just like that. Only share the topic related questions, because I'm receiving 10s and 20s of messages on WhatsApp regarding this webinar, that screen issue, this issue, that issue, and I'm also unable to answer all things here as well. So if there is only a topical related question, please share, else everything recording and stuff I will address you all, don't worry. Okay, now why did I conduct this webinar? So as you all know that I even mentioned the topic that we are going to discuss, a topic of substantive procedures here. Okay, now there is a big myth about substantive procedures, and that myth needs to be busted and killed, because the only problem with this myth is that it is doing nothing apart from confusing students, and even the students who have taken all the lectures. Okay, obviously previously what used to happen was that students took the lectures of tutor. Okay, they knew whom I'm enrolling with, what's his brand name, took the classes, prepared for himself, and then went and gave the exam. Okay, now it's a digital age, and through social media everyone is connected with each other, and we are also connected with each other. Okay, now if a student passes his exams, specifically talking about F8 audit and assurance. Okay, if a student passes his exams, and I'm specifically talking about F8 audit and assurance exam. Okay, if he passes his exams, he's fine. But if a student fails his exam, okay, obviously he's very much disappointed after failure, that my exam got failed. Okay, now rather than contacting the subject specialist tutor, whoever he is, okay, because I'm talking this because this webinar is not being attended only by my students. There are some obviously other students as well who have not studied from me, studied from some other tutor, or self-studied. Okay, so when a student passes the exam, fine, okay, keep him aside. If a student fails his exam, rather than contacting the subject specialist tutor, okay, what he does is he writes on social media, I failed my F8 exam, please help. What should I do? I failed my F8 exam, please help. What should I do? Okay, now obviously we are also on social media and we are also monitoring. Okay, now when he writes this, that I failed my exam, please help, what should I do? There is a series of replies. There is a series of replies. What is the reply? You failed because of substantive procedures. Hundreds of comments, series of replies. You failed because of substantive procedures. Okay. Now that student thought, one who got failed, that I thought I had a very good grip on substantive procedures. I took the lecture, the tutor taught me this is the way to write substantive procedures. And every one of these students is saying that you failed because of substantive procedures. So he starts to believe, okay, substantive procedures is the main cause of my failure. Now, when I asked that student, how much marks did you get? They reply, I got 42. I got 44, I got 45, I got 46, I got 48, I got 49. They come to me, sir, I think I have failed because of substantive procedures. I tell him, how did you know? I posted on social media and many people replied me that you have failed because of substantive procedures. That's why I started to trust them that this is because of substantive procedures. So I asked them, what are your marks? Now one student said, I have 45. So I told them, okay, you gained 45 marks. Substantive procedures is tested maximum in the exam of 25 marks, maximum. It's usually of 20. But if I put the maximum here, substantive procedures is tested maximum of 25 marks. So I told him that, listen, assuming that you have secured 0 out of 25 in substantive, assuming you have secured 0 out of 25 in substantive, how much marks are left? 75. Assuming you have secured 0. However, it's a high improbability that a student is securing 0 out of 25 in substantive. But still, assuming you have got 0 out of 25 in substantive, still the paper had 75 more marks. You didn't secure 70, you didn't secure 65, you didn't secure 60, you got 45. That means out of 75, remove 25 marks of substantive, you got 0. This means out of 75 marks, you only got 45. So the 30 marks were also lost somewhere else. But because of the students' wrong guidance and wrong comments, you are assuming that substantive procedures failed you, whereas there were some other topics also which you failed to have a grip on, which you failed to perform well, and that's why your result. Because else, if you are having grip on all topics and just having problem in substantive procedures, you should have at least secured 70. Okay, so I started research on this. Now there are many students of mine who are basically securing position in every attempt. Okay, now last attempt we didn't had any position. Last attempt we didn't had any position, but our 10 students secured above 80. Last time we didn't have, last attempt there was no position in F8 audit exam, but our 10 students secured 80 plus marks. Okay, so I basically contacted them and told them and requested them that if you could write the answer paper for me, that how did you write substantive procedures in the exam in your past paper question, that will be of great help for students. Okay, so they wrote me, and obviously I researched on that bit, and that's why I decided to conduct this webinar to break a myth about substantive procedures. Okay, now the biggest myth regarding is data. When student comes to me and says that I think, according to many comments on social media, that I have failed because of substantive procedures, I tell them, okay, reconnect with those guys again who told you that you have failed because of substantive procedures, and tell them what is the reason of my poor performance in substantive procedures. They tell me one thing. Sir, they are saying you fail to link substantive procedures with the scenario. You fail to link substantive procedures with the scenario. And according to the student comments, this is because you failed in substantive procedures. Now, after listening to this point that you failed to link substantive procedures, okay, many students start doubting the tutors from whom they have studied. Many students start doubting the tutors from whom they have studied, because I don't know about other tutors. Let's suppose you have studied F8 and audit and assurance from me. Okay, now there is a topic of substantive procedures of receivables, of payables, of sales, of provisions, of non-current assets, of land and buildings. There are substantive procedures of many topics. How do I teach? I give them a list of substantive procedures of all topics, that these are the substantive procedures, 7-8 procedures for sales, 7-8 procedures for receivables, 7-8 procedures for inventory, 7-8 procedures for non-current assets, 7-8 procedures for depreciation, 8-10 procedures for cash and bank, 7-8 procedures for inventory. I tell them to learn these procedures. Okay, and I also teach them a skill to develop the procedures. And then I say that if the requirement is of 5-6 marks, what you should do, you should try to make 2, 3, 4 procedures by your own, the way I have taught you. And you should write 3, 4 procedures which you have learned as it is and gain marks. So they say, okay, sir, me told us to write the substantive procedure of inventory as it is from his handout. Sir told us to write substantive procedures of non-current assets right from his handout. Sir told us to write substantive procedures of receivables right from his handout. Sir didn't taught us linking with scenario. I just copy pasted the sir's procedures of notes in my examination. For receivables, I learned his procedures, the tutor's procedures, my procedures, and wrote it. I just learned the tutor's procedures from the notes, inventory procedures, and wrote it. I didn't link it. If I passed, very nice. If I failed, there was definitely a problem on substantive procedures, and there was definitely a linkage problem. That's why I failed. This is a big myth that needs to be busted, and I will break this myth now, today's session, through the help of some past paper answers. Okay, now first of all, I never advise not to link. Okay, but what does linking mean? What does linking means? Linking just means mentioning company name in procedure. Okay, mentioning company name in procedure. Okay, linking just means mentioning date present in scenario, if any. Okay, linking just means mentioning customer name if present in scenario. That's it. Nothing else is linking. Okay, now you think that you have failed because of substantive procedures, you think you have failed because of non-linking. It's a big myth. I will prove, I will bust this myth now. But what does linking means? Linking just means that if there is a case study, mention company's name. If any date is present, mention the date. If customer name is present, mention that. That's it. Okay, like there is a very common procedure. There is a very common procedure. Cast the total to ensure arithmetic accuracy. I'm sure you all are familiar with this procedure. This is a very common procedure, substantive procedures used. Okay, cast the total to ensure arithmetic accuracy. Okay, the better thing is that, for example, you are given a scenario of XYZ Limited. So you should write, cast the total of sales of Ride PLC. Let's suppose you are auditing for the year 2005. Cast the total of sales of Ride PLC of 2005 to ensure arithmetic accuracy. Okay. Now, second one is better. Second one is better. Okay. It doesn't mean that if you have written the above one, you won't get any marks. Okay. In my opinion, you are still gonna get 1 mark for the procedure. But even if according to you and the comments mentioned by students, this is the case, hardly 0.25 marks. It doesn't mean that the red one procedure, the second procedure, that's 1 out of 1 and the above is 0 out of 1. That's not the case. The students have made this myth themselves. Okay, the students have made this myth themselves. And they wrongly guide people. Now, are you seeing the difference that what does linking means? Cast the total of sales to ensure arithmetic accuracy. Cast the total of sales of right PLC of 2005 to ensure arithmetic. Just mentioning the company name, just mentioning the date, if there was any customer name. Similarly, let's suppose you might have seen a very common procedure with respect to inventory that physically visit the warehouse to confirm existence of inventory. Okay, to confirm existence of inventory. The usual procedure is physically visit the warehouse to confirm existence of inventory. Okay. Now, according to your myth, this is not going to gain marks. If you just copy paste it, this is not going to gain marks. You should link it with the scenario because you are following students' advice. You're not following the tutor's advice. Okay. What does linking mean? Mention company's name, date, customer name. Physically visit warehouse of Z Limited, for example, to confirm existence of inventory. The second one seems more better. Again, if you are thinking that the first one is not going to give you any marks, you are wrong. The second one is just you are somewhat relating it to the scenario. Okay. There is a very common procedure taught in receivables. Okay. Send a confirmation letter to customer to verify existence or valuation Okay, send a confirmation letter to verify existence or okay. Now, for example, you are provided, for example, you are provided the data you are provided a scenario in which it states that Mr. X or Mr. Bahal, a customer, is not replying since many months, whether he will pay us money or not. Okay. And it asked you to write down 4 substantive procedures for this receivable. So rather than writing this, send a confirmation letter to customer to verify existence valuation. Send a confirmation letter to Mr. Bal. For example, this is the name of the customer, to verify existence or valuation of, if amount is present, $1,000 balance. Okay. Now this is just linking with the scenario. That, for example, in the scenario, there was an amount which we are to receive from Mr. Bal of 1,000. Okay. So send a confirmation letter to customer, write the name, Mr. Bal, link with the scenario to verify existence valuation of how much? $1,000. Again, strictly saying, if you think that the above black substantive procedure is not going to secure marks, you are wrong. I will just prove them after the screen. But if you want to link and don't know how to link, linking just means company name, customer name, date, valuation of amount. That's it. Okay. So if you want to copy this or take a snap of this, you can. Then I will break the myth that either copying, pasting substantive procedures from my notes will secure marks or not. Okay, just copy it or take a snap of it, and then I will move towards the past exam question. I will again request the students who have joined late. I'm sharing a WhatsApp group link on the chats. Please join it. Okay, let's take any questions if students have. Okay, so there is one question that do we have to mention assertions as well? Okay, this is also a big myth that many students recommend other students that assertion mentioning is also necessary, else you will fail. Okay, I will just confirm you assertion mentioning is compulsory or not. A big no. It's not compulsory to mention assertion as long as you are verifying and writing the substantive procedures. Okay. Now, what did I say? Is linking necessary or not? Is assertion necessary or not? Okay. I will just prove you via two past paper questions. Okay. Let me just open them. Okay. Afan, I usually advise students who are studying from me that every procedure carries 1 mark, right? However, it's advisable, even in test of controls question, that if you are asked 5 weaknesses and recommendations, write 6, one extra if you have that. If a question asks for 7 audit risk and responses, okay, so 7 audit risk and responses is 14 marks. If you have more, write 8. Okay. Thirdly, if substantive procedures are asked for 4 marks, you need to write 4 procedure, but better write one more. Okay, so this is how it should work. Okay, now as you can see on the screen, to prove some points and to ensure you are confident enough before going to exam that whatever you are doing is correct or not, and whatever I'm saying is correct or not. Okay, we have opened a past paper question from September-December 2021 attempt. This is from the ACCA website, obviously, you all know. So September-December 2021 attempt. Okay. It's firstly the instruction screen. The first question in this exam was of audit risk and responses. This is not in our agenda, so I'm just ignoring it. Second was ethical threats and safeguards. So this is also not our agenda. The next question was TOCs. So obviously we are not covering TOCs as well. Now this question, question number 3 of this attempt was relating to substantive procedures. So we will solve this question for substantive procedures. Okay. Now, this scenario relates to 5 requirements. Okay, this scenario relates to 5 requirements. Okay, it is 1st July. Danube is listed. Okay, so the company name is Danube, and the date is 1st July. Danube is listed on a stock exchange, sells consumer goods to wholesale customers. The company has a large head office and 18 warehouses. You are an audit supervisor of Mississippi and Company, and the final audit for the year ended 31st March 2005 is due to come in shortly. The draft financial statements show total assets of 198.5 million and profit before tax of 56.1 million. The following 3 matters have been brought to your attention. Okay, now this is just a formality paragraph. Okay, that it is 1st July. Danube is listed on a stock exchange, sells consumer goods to wholesale customers. Company has a large head office, 18 warehouses. You are an audit supervisor of Mississippi and Company. So you are an audit supervisor, okay, of Mississippi and Company. So it seems Mississippi is the audit firm because you are the audit supervisor of Mississippi. So Mississippi seems to be the audit firm. And the final audit for year is due to come in shortly. Draft statements show a total assets of 198.5 million, PBT of 56.1. Following 3 matters have been brought to your attention. Okay, 3 matters have been brought to your attention. Land and buildings. Danube historically recorded all property, plant, equipment at cost less accumulated depreciation. So historically, they have recorded all property, plant, equipment at cost less accumulated depreciation. However, during the year, management decided to change the accounting policy for land and buildings from the cost model to the revaluation model. The finance director hired an external independent valuer. Okay, so you hired an external independent valuer to undertake valuation of all land and buildings, and this took place in July 2004. Okay, depreciation is calculated monthly on a pro rata basis. Depreciation is monthly on a pro rata basis. Danube's year-end balance for PP includes land and buildings of 79.2 million. In 2004, it was 64 million. That's it. A scenario is given for land and buildings that Danube historically recorded all property, plant, equipment at cost less depreciation. Okay. However, during the year, the management decided to change the accounting policy for land and buildings from the cost model to the revaluation model. Management has changed the accounting policy for land and buildings from cost model to revaluation model. The finance director hired an external independent valuer. Okay, so you are changing a model from cost to revaluation. So finance director hired a valuer. He didn't value himself. He had a valuer to undertake valuation of all land and buildings. This took place in July 2004. Depreciation is calculated monthly on pro rata basis, and year-end balance for PP includes land and buildings of 79.2. The second issue is trade receivable circularization. Okay. Hamza Zamir, what are you eating? Your video is open, you are eating. Either you are studying or you are eating. Trade receivable circularization. Danube's year-end receivable balance of 9.3 million has significantly increased compared to the prior year. Okay. Now, the other area seems to be of receivable circularization. So Danube's trade receivable balance has increased significantly from the prior year. Okay. Danube's receivables ledger is made up of a large number of customers with balances ranging from 15,000 to 150,000. A positive receivable circularization has been undertaken by the audit team based on year-end balances. So audit team has undertaken receivable circularization. I'm sure you all know what is the receivable circularization. I'm sure you all know what is receivable circularization. Okay. It's just sending a letter to customer to confirm his balance. Receivable circularization. It's same as receivable confirmation letter. Okay, receivable circularization is basically a receivable confirmation letter when you send a confirmation letter to customer. So a positive receivable circularization has been undertaken by audit team based on year-end balances. The majority of responses from customers agreed to balances as per Danube's receivable ledger. However, following exceptions were noted. Customer is Nile Company. Balance as per Danube is 141, but customer has not given any response. Whereas in Congo Company, the other customer, balance as per Danube is 136, whereas response for customer is 1229. Okay. So you basically sent receivable circularization. Two customers have problems. Majority of customers agreed to balance, but following exceptions were noted. Two customers have balances as per our records different, and one customer, Nile company, didn't respond. However, the other one responded with a difference. Third scenario is provision and receivable arising from the sale of defective goods. In December 2004, Danube Company sold a number of hoverboards to a customer, Kalama Kids. It is alleged by Kalama Kids that these hoverboards are faulty, as there have been a few instances of the hoverboards overheating and catching fire. As a result, Kalama Kids is suing Danube for 3.9 million. The court case is due to take place in August 2005, and management believes that Kalama Kids' claim is likely to be successful. No hoverboards remain in Danube's inventory at the year. So in December 2004, Danube sold a number of hoverboards to a customer, Kalama Kids. It is alleged by Kalama Kids that hoverboards are faulty, they catch fire. As a result, Kalama Kids is suing us for balance of 3.9 million. Court case is due to take place in August. Management believes claim is likely to be successful. No hoverboards remain in inventory. Danube purchased the hoverboards from a supplier. Now they sold to Kalama Kids, but they purchased from a supplier, Thames Company. In February, Danube contacted Thames and requested that they reimburse Danube for damages which may become payable as a result of the sale of defective hoverboards. Danube is requesting a sum of 3.9 million from Thames. The draft statements contain a provision of 3.9 million in respect of customer's claim and a receivable of 3.9 million in respect of Danube's counterclaim against its supplier. Now, what is happening? We sold hoverboards to Kalama Kids. They were catching fire. So Kalama Kids sued us for 3.9 million. They asked for a penalty of 3.9 million. Now we purchased hoverboards from Thames and we requested Thames that you pay this penalty. So what happened? In our financial statements, we made a provision of 3.9 million, which we have to pay to Kalama, and a receivable of 3.9 million, which we have to receive from Thames. These were the three issues. Now, what is the requirement? Describe substantive procedures the auditor should perform to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence in relation to plan and bill. 6 marks. So you have to write 6 substantive procedures. Okay. 6 substantive procedures. On what? Land and buildings. 6 mark requirement. Okay. Describe the procedures auditor should perform in relation to exceptions noted during trade receivable circularization in respect of Nile and Congo. So you need to say that it's a 4 marks requirement for procedures. Auditor should perform not on receivables, but in relation to exceptions noted during receivable circularization. Remember, there were exceptions noted on Nile company. There were exceptions noted on Congo company. 4 marks, marks will be split equally between each customer. So you can say 2 marks are for audit procedures on Nile and 2 marks are on audit procedures for Congo. And describe substantive procedures auditor should perform to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence in relation to provision from the sale of defective goods. 5 marks means you have to mention 5 substantive procedures. Okay. Now, as far as my teaching is concerned, if you see requirement C, there are 5 substantive procedures on provision. Okay, so there are some substantive procedures on provision in my notes. Okay, there are some substantive procedures on provisions in my notes. I will copy them according to some students' feedback. who know nothing, this won't score you marks. Okay, you should link them. I have taught you linking means customer name, supplier name, Thames company, Danube, that's it. Okay. This is 4-mark substantive procedures on 2 customers. So basically they are receivables. So there are substantive procedures and receivables. I will copy paste from my notes. According to students who know nothing, this one gave you again new marks. Okay, I will just prove you. And describe substantive procedures auditors perform on land and buildings. So land and buildings is property, plant, equipment, non-current asset. Okay. So I have in my notes provided the substantive procedures on non-current assets. I will copy paste them. Maximum, I will just mention the name. That's it. Okay. Now this topic is substantive procedures. First requirement, substantive procedures in relation to land and buildings. Substantive procedures in relation to land and buildings. Scenario of land and buildings, just read it. Danube historically recorded all property, plant, equipment at costless depreciation. Danube historically recorded all property, plant, equipment at costless accumulated depreciation. However, during the year, management decided to change the policy for land and buildings from cost model to revaluation. Understand what is happening. It recorded all property, plant, equipment at costless depreciation. However, during the year, they changed the policy from cost to revaluation. The finance director hired an external independent valuer to undertake valuation. For valuation, an independent expert was appointed. Depreciation is calculated monthly or pro rata basis. Okay, 6 procedures on land and buildings. Okay, now please pay attention. People who have studied from me, they know this, and those who haven't, I will just tell them. Shabas, please wait. I will share everything in the group after the class. Okay. Now, this is my handout, which I provide for substantive procedures of every topic. Okay. And I tell students that substantive procedures need to be learned from this. And when you are asked, you can write them from there. Okay. Now it has asked me substantive procedures for land and buildings. As we all know, land and buildings are non-current assets. Land and buildings are non-current assets. So this is my handout. People who have studied from me are familiar with this handout. Okay. And what I guide students is that you should learn substantive procedures from this handout. This was made with the huge efforts a few years back, and this will help you to secure marks. Okay. Now, if a student passes through these, he's all set. If a student fails, puts on social media for guidance rather than contacting the tutor, I failed, everybody blasts. This was because of substantive procedures. You didn't link, you didn't mention the assertion, you just copy pasted from the notes because Alhamdulillah, we are teaching the maximum number of students around the world. So this handout is circulated everywhere. So according to people who failed, you just copy pasted. That's why you failed. Just let's close this. Okay. These are the substantive procedures on non-current assets, land and building. Like I have taught them to verify substantive procedures on non-current assets. You can physically inspect non-current assets. Okay. To make it link with the scenario, rather than writing carrying out a physical inspection of fixed assets, you can write carry out physical inspection of fixed assets, or it's not about fixed assets, it's specifically land and buildings. So you can replace carry out a physical inspection of land and buildings. Okay. of Danube company linked with the scenario. Second, verify ownership of property by inspecting title deeds and registration document. Okay, this is just a copy paste. Okay, you want to link it with the scenario, verify ownership of land and building by inspecting title deeds and registration documents of Danube. Okay, now the third one, verify ownership of motor vehicles. You cannot write this because this is not about motor vehicles, it's about land and buildings. Remove it. Review lease agreements. You can write this. Okay, select a sample of physically present assets in the company and inspect asset register to ensure they are included. Reconcile general ledger with schedule of property, plant, equipment. Reperform reconciliation of non-current asset register. Review depreciation policies for reasonableness by comparison to last year. Recalculate depreciation expense for the year. Agree revalued amounts to a valuation report. Okay. Now you were asked for 6 procedures. Okay, so obviously there was a thing mentioned about the independent valuer, so it has a point of valuation as well, and it had a point of depreciation as well, so you can write depreciation as well. Now if you write 6 procedures, you're going to get 6 marks, and this is not a handout or notes which has just been made now. I provided since 2-3 years. Okay, now breaking that myth, and specifically for you who have failed in the past or who are just giving for the first time and just relying on those irrelevant comments from students. Okay, let's do one thing. The official answers published by ACCA, published by examiner. Okay, look at this point. Please pay attention because this is very much important for you. Look at this point. This one. For a sample of land and buildings from the non-current asset register, physically verify to confirm existence. In my notes, carry out a physical inspection of land and buildings. Okay. Did I mention the assertion? No. Did my notes link with the scenario mentioned Danube company anywhere? No. Here is the examiner answer. For a sample of land and buildings from the non-current register, physically verify to confirm existence. Where is the assertion in the examiner answer? Okay. Okay. We have mentioned existence here, no problem. Let's move to somewhere else. But keeping assertion aside for a minute. Keeping assertion aside for a minute. Okay. Again, 3 or 4 messages immediately. Just listen to what I'm saying completely, please. Where is scenario linkage mentioned in this particular substantive procedure? See, this is a scenario. Danube has historically recorded property, plant, equipment at cost less accumulated depreciation. Was anything mentioned in that substantive procedure which I just read from the examiner answer? No, it just stated carry out a physical inspection. Where is anything mentioned with respect to cost and accumulated depreciation? However, during the year, management decided to change the policy for land and buildings from cost to revaluation. Where was that mentioned in carry out a physical inspection? That's examiner answer. Finance director hired an independent valuer. Where was this thing mentioned in that substantive procedure? Depreciation is calculated monthly. Where was this thing mentioned in this substantive procedure? So as far as I understand English language, for a sample of land and buildings, physically verify to confirm existence, it has no link to the scenario. So whoever is guiding you wrong, linkage is necessary. Showing this because they talk without evidences. Okay, and here I am talking with evidence. Okay, second, just look at this. Agree the schedule of revalued land and buildings to the valuation statement provided by the valuer. Agree revalued amounts to a valuation report. The amount should be matched with valuation report. This is my substantive procedure. Agree revalued land and buildings to the valuation statement provided by the valuer. Okay. Agree the schedule of revalued land and buildings to the valuation statement provided by the valuer. So it's saying agree revalued land and buildings to valuation report by the valuer. And this is what is mentioned in the notes. Agreed revalued land and buildings, revalued amounts to report prepared by the valuer or valuation report is the same thing. Where is Danube company here? Okay. Where is assertion here? Ignore my notes. You don't often trust tutor's notes, specifically when you have failed. Okay. Do you trust the examiner answer? This point, which I am mentioning, okay. Agree revalued amounts to statement provided by the valuer. There is nothing mentioned about Danube here. There is nothing mentioned about this switch from cost model to revaluation model. And this is exactly from my notes. So that means I have highlighted you 2 points which are directly coming from the notes. Okay. Now there is a student who has given a question. That in the second point which I have mentioned, we are talking about variable. That's automatic linking. That's automatic linking. This means that if you write the procedure from my notes file, it's auto linking. But you won't find this linking in the first point because physical inspection, there is nothing like this mentioned in the scenario. Okay. Look at this. Reperform reconciliation on non-current asset register to general ledger. If you learn from my notes and copy pasted according to some failures who misguide students, that this won't secure marks. Okay. Go to the exam and answer. What is the procedure written in my notes? Reconciliation of non-current asset register to general ledger. For a sample of land and buildings, it's just a formality statement that audit is on sample basis. So in every procedure, it's just writing for a sample. Trace back to a non-current asset register and general ledger. Again, non-current asset register and general ledger. This was exactly what I mentioned. Trace back or reconciliation is the same thing. It's mentioning trace back, reconciliation, same thing. Non-current asset register to the general ledger. Non-current asset register to the general ledger. This is the examiner answer. Don't trust the notes. Examiner answer. Okay. Was anything mentioned according to Danube? No. Okay. Was anything mentioned about the scenario? Hiring of a valuer, depreciation charge? No. In every substantive procedure, I have taught one thing to the students, that for every substantive procedure, if that item is relating to an IAS, always mention this: review the financial statement to ensure they comply with the relevant standard. So since land and buildings are IAS 16, provisions is IAS 37. Okay. So review financial statements to ensure that they comply with IAS 16 or IAS 37 or IAS 18, whatever, if there is any IAS. See this point of the examiner. Where is he linking with the scenario? So whoever is particularly telling you this, okay, we are saying that you can link, mention the company's name, mention the customer's name, okay, fine. But if you think that this is obligatory, assumptions, assertions are obligatory, linking is obligatory, the examiner answers proof this is wrong. So that means 4 procedures from my notes, if you just copied, even if you copy pasted others, you're going to gain marks. Okay. Sharia, you can mention the procedure from the notes. I recommend to mention the company's name, to mention the date, to mention receivables. But saying that copy pasting from the notes will secure 0 marks, I disagree with it. And that is what I'm showing you evidence. Omar, in my notes also, wherever existence and valuation is mentioned, I have also written. Abdul Jamil, I think, dear, you are in a bit of hurry. So please don't do here dictation that please proceed, please be fast. Okay. This is not a good thing because I have to answer questions as well. So I cannot move on as per your own pace. I do apologize if you think we are going a bit slow. You can leave the class. The recording will be shared later. So you can always watch the recording as per your own pace. But please let me answer students' question. I cannot move on as per your own pace and your own demand. Thank you. It's fine. It's fine. It's not about apology and some. I have to answer questions. I don't want to be slow, but obviously I have to wait for students. Now, you will get a more smooth idea if you move forward. Now you see that the second requirement was we're ready to trade receivable circularization. I want you to listen to this point as well. It's a very good point. Danube's year-end receivable balance of 9.3 million has significantly increased and compared to the prior year. Okay, so its year-end receivable balance of 9.3 million has significantly increased. Danube's receivable ledger is made up of a large number of customers with balances ranging from 15,000 to 150,000. A positive receivable circularization has been undertaken. Positive receivable circularization means that you have sent a confirmation letter. Positive receivable circularization means you have sent a confirmation letter. Majority of responses from customers agreed to the balances as per Danube's receivable ledger. So majority responses agreed to our balance. However, the following exceptions were noted. There were two exceptions noted. Nile company, as per Danube, the balance is 141, but customer has not given any response of circularization. We sent circularization, sent a confirmation letter. We haven't received any response. For Congo company, the balance as per Danube is 136,321, but customer has said it's 122,189. Okay. That's a 4-mark requirement. Describe the procedures the auditor should perform in relation to exceptions noted during receivable circularization. So you have to perform procedures in respect to the exceptions. Remember, there were two exceptions noted, one of Nile company and one of Congo. There are two exceptions noted, one of Nile and one of Congo. So we have to mention audit procedures on these exceptions, Nile and Congo. 4 marks equally split, 2 marks on Nile and 2 marks on Congo. Now there are 2 marks in respect to audit procedures of Nile company and 2 marks on audit procedures for Congo. Okay. Sana, I think this is what we are trying to explain since the last 1.5 hours, that you are reading the examiner answers. Is he linking? I don't think so. So saying that if you don't link, you don't get marks, that's a wrong statement because the examiner answers are evident in front of you. Okay. Okay. Now, if you have to write 2 audit procedures for Nile and 2 audit procedures for Congo, remember, Nile and Congo both are receivables. Okay. Two audit procedures for Nile, 2 for Congo. Both are our receivables. So obviously, you have to write substantive procedures on receivables. If you want to link it with the scenario, Nile balance was 141 as per Danube. Customer hasn't given any response. Congo's balance was 136321. Customer has said 122,189. So both are receivable. So obviously you have to mention substantive procedures, 2 for Nile, 2 for Congo in respect of receivables. Okay. Now, this is my notes file, which I share with my F8 students, okay, which has substantive procedures on every topic. Okay. Now I have provided them these 10 substantive procedures on receivables. Okay. The first substantive procedure on receivable: perform a positive receivable circularization. Send a confirmation letter, positive receivable circularization. For non-responses with client's permission, send a follow-up circularization. If clients doesn't respond to the confirmation letter, send a follow-up. If no response to follow-up with client's permission, telephone the customer and ask whether they are able to respond in writing. If still no response, then call the customer. If still no response, perform alternative procedures to confirm receivables. If still not responding, then you send a confirmation letter. If no response, again send. If still no response, telephone. If still no response, alternate. Then calculate average receivable days and compare with previous years. Select a sample of GDNs before and after year end. Compare with invoices. Review sales ledger for any credit balance. Ensure receivables included as current assets. Select a sample of your balance and agree back to supporting documentation. Reconcile sales ledger control account to list of balances. Okay. Now these are receivables. I have to mention substantive procedures, 2 for Nile and 2 for Congo. Now 2 substantive procedures for Nile. Okay. Danube states 1441102 is to be received, but customer hasn't given any response. And a positive receivable circularization has been undertaken. So if you want to write 2 procedures on Nile, you have to be a bit smart. Okay. You cannot write this point. Perform a positive receivable circularization. Why? Because circularization has already been sent. Circularization has already been sent. So you cannot write perform a positive receivable circularization. That's already been sent. Nile hasn't responded. So for non-responses, send a follow-up. Still no responses, telephone the customer. Still no response, alternate. You can write the receivable days, you can write the GDNs one. Any of these 2 procedures would work. Sir, if I copy paste from your notes, many students say we failed, we don't gain marks, okay, because there is no linkage. Okay, go to the examiner answer. This is the examiner answer. Read this. For non-responses from Nile, with client's permission, the team should arrange to send up a follow-up confirmation. Second, if Nile does not respond to the follow-up, then with client's confirmation, the auditor should telephone the customer and ask whether they are able to respond in writing. If there is still no response, then the auditor should undertake alternative procedures to confirm the receivable balance. This would include detailed testing of balance of review of after-date cash receipts, agreed to sales invoice and GDN. Have you read the first one? For non-response, send a follow-up. If again not respond, auditor should telephone. Read point number 2 and 3 for my notes. For non-responses, send a follow-up. If still no response, with client's permission, telephone and ask whether they're able to respond. If still no response, alternate procedure. They have also written this. Where is the assertion? People who say, if you don't mention the assertion, you don't gain marks. Where is the assertion? Please read the examiner answer and show me. Where is the assertion? Talking with evidences. Just stating that you don't gain marks because of this, because of that is easy. But with facts, with justification, with evidences. Talking with that is difficult. So see, he has only mentioned for non-responses from Nile. Mention the name of the customer. This is linking, nothing else. Send follow. If customer does not respond, this is what is written in my notes. It has said if Nile does not respond, should send follow-up. If still no response, should send undertake alternative procedures. So you see that there is no assertion mentioning, no linkage, copy pasting from the notes, getting marks. Any questions with respect to this? Shabazz, substantive procedures come of 20 to 25 marks. Now for Congo company, as per Danube, it's 136321, but customer says it's 122189. We have sent a confirmation letter. Danube says it's 136321, but customer is saying it's 122189. Now you have to be a bit smart. Two procedures, you cannot write send a confirmation letter that's already been done, and customer has already responded. So you know when customer has already responded, you cannot write number 2, you cannot write number 3, you cannot write number 4, because all these are for non-response. If no response, if still no response, the customer has already responded. So you cannot write 2, 3, 4. Why is the difference between your balance and customer's balance? You can write others. Cutoff errors, misposting, date errors, or reconciliation errors, goods in transit errors, or maybe customer has deposited a check and you haven't received it, stuff like that. Sales returns, that he has returned some sale and you haven't posted it. So all these are in others. So you have to just be a bit smart in copying pasting as well. In the first one, Nile company, the customer didn't respond it. We have sent a confirmation letter, so we cannot write the first one. but customer hasn't responded. So you can write all the points of if no response, if no response, if no response. But in the second one, he has already responded. So you can write number 2, number 3, number 4, you can write others. Okay, now the third requirement of the question was that describe substantive procedures auditor should perform to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence in relation to provision. So you have to mention 5 marks, 5 procedures on provision. Okay, now what is the case study here? What is the case of provision? The case of provision is that in December, Danube sold a number of hoverboats to a customer, Kalama Kids. Please pay attention. This is the last requirement of this question of substantive procedures. In December, Danube sold a number of hoverboats to Kalama Kids. It is alleged by Kalama Kids that these hoverboats are faulty. There have been few instances overheating and catching fire. As a result, Kalama is suing Danube for 3.9 million. The court is due to place in August, and management believes Kalama's claim is likely to be successful. No hoverboats remain. This is the first paragraph. We sold goods to Kalama Kids. They said it's faulty. They have sued us for 3.9 million. We believe the case is likely to be successful. Now, second paragraph. You sold hoverboats to Kalama, right? And they have sued you for 3.9 million. Danube purchased these hoverboats from a supplier, Thames. You purchased them from Thames. You were a middle party. You sold to Kalama Kids, who have sued you for 3.9. You purchased them from Thames. Danube contacted Thames and requested they reimburse the damages which have become payable as a result of sale of defective hoverboats. You are saying to Thames that you gave us these hoverboats and we have been sued for 3.9 million. So you pay this 3.9 million. Danube is requesting 3.9 million from Thames. Draft statement contain a provision of 3.9. So our draft financial statements contain a provision of 3.9 which we have to pay to Kalama Kids, and receivable of 3.9 because we want to receive 3.9 from Danube. Substantive procedures on provisions. Okay. You have made a provision of 3.9 and receivable of 3.9. Now what I suggest to them, this is my notes file. Okay. Now in my handout, there is a portion of provisions. I have mentioned them provisions for court cases, lawsuits, like in this case, a suit is being filed, provision for warranty, provision for receivable, provision for reorganization. Okay. Now, if you go and look at the requirement of this question, I've taught them 4 topics: provision for reorganization and restructuring, told them that these 6 points, provision for receivables 5 points, provision for warranty 5 points, provision for lawsuit 5 points. Okay. Now, if you look at the case study, Kalama Kids has sued us 3.9 million. So this is likely to be a provision for suit. Okay. I have guided my students that this is a lawsuit case file. So this is substantive procedure which you should write. 5 marks, 5 procedures. Discuss with management the nature of dispute to ensure full understanding of issues obtained and to address whether obligation exists. Obtain lawyer confirmation to obtain their views as to probability of claiming successful. Review board minutes to understand whether director believes the claim to be successful or not. Obtain representation from management confirming their view that claim is unlikely to be successful and hence no provision is required. Ensure adequate disclosure is made in financial statement as per applicable financial reporting framework. That's provisions for IS 37. Write them and marks. Again, one who passes, he's perfect. One who fails, type, I failed, help me. The help brigade who doesn't know anything, you failed because you copy pasted procedures, you didn't link it. Okay. Official answer. Okay. Read this point. Official answer. Review board minutes to establish whether director believes that claim will be successful or not. Is there anything related to the scenario? Is the company name mentioned? Thames, Danube? No, just writing a random procedure. Review board minutes to establish whether directors believes claim will be successful or not. Is there any assertion present here? Without assertion, some people think they won't gain any marks. Is there any assertion present? No. Let's talk about no's. Review board minutes to understand whether directors believe the claim to be successful or not. Review board minutes to establish whether directors believe the claim to be successful or not. Same copy pasting. People say copy pasting doesn't earn marks. Evidence. Okay. Review adequacy of disclosures of lawsuit and supplier claim in the draft statement to ensure they are in accordance with IS 37. Adequacy of disclosures or adequate disclosure, same thing, is made in financial statement as per IS 37. Two marks. Okay, same points. Is the same point. Review adequacy of disclosures of lawsuit and supplier claim in draft statement, ensure they're in accordance with IS. Read this point. Obtain written representation from management confirming their view that the claim is unlikely to be successful and its no provision is required. Obtain written representation confirming management's view that the lawsuit is likely to be successful and hence a provision is required. It's mentioning about provision as well as the receivable. Okay, doesn't matter. We can only mention about the provision. So obtain written representation confirming management's view that the lawsuit is likely to be successful and provision is required. Obtain written representation from management confirming that the claim is likely, unlikely to be successful. Likely, unlikely, both will work. Provision is required, no provision is required, both will work. Okay. Obtain lawyer confirmation, discuss with management. Obtain lawyer confirmation to obtain their views. Obtain lawyer confirmation to obtain their views as to probability of claim being successful. Discuss with management. Lawyer confirmation. Leave it. Discuss with management and legal advisors. These points are slightly more elaborated than my answer, but this point 1, this point 2, this point 3, they're just copy pasted from answers. Even if you believe that writing my other 2 points out of 5 would give you 0 marks, still you get 3 out of 5. So substantive procedures don't fail you. It's a big myth. Substantive procedures don't fail you. It's a big myth. Don't fall in this. Substantive procedures won't gain marks without assertion, a big myth. You have seen the examiner answer. This is the latest past paper. He is not mentioning assertions. Forget about my notes. He's not mentioning assertions. Third, linking is necessary, a big myth. Where he's linking. I am advising you to mention company's name, mention supplier's name, but if you see here, we can't find it anywhere. So my notes file has all topics substantive procedures. If you just copy paste it, elaborate a bit, link it with company's name and stuff, you will gain perfect marks. Even if you don't, you will still gain marks. Don't believe these rumors. Stay confident in the exam. Watch these notes. Take my video lectures of substantive and go in the exam. Don't believe others. Obviously, if a student is failing, he just has to find a way why he failed, and he just listens to wrong advices. So don't listen to them. If you are able to learn substantive procedures from my handouts and copy paste, you can perfectly gain marks. I have shown you enough evidence from past papers. Okay, so hope you all understood it. Okay, we are ending our today's class. Okay, and further discussion and the notes sharing and the recording will be shared later on the group. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, you can ask on the group now.